Now that we had a chance to explore the features of planar mapping, let's begin to take a look at some of the other UV layout tools that Maya has available. Okay, so in this scene, we've got just our normal polygon sphere, and in this window, I've gone ahead and docked the UV texture editor so that the changes that I make to this sphere, you should be able to see the changes that will have on this object's UV layout. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to Edit Polygons, Texture, and in the previous video, we took a look at planar mapping. So let's take a look now at cylindrical mapping and what that's going to do. Okay, so with our object selected and the cylindrical map applied, what you'll get is this manipulator around your object. Okay, and if you take a look at your UV layout, you can see exactly what this has done to this object. Okay, the manipulator, you can see, goes halfway around our sphere. And basically, it's not so much that only half of our sphere is being mapped, it's that it's actually making this UV layout longer than this original quadrant that we started out in. Okay, so if you were to go in and actually manipulate this, adjust this manipulator, you can grab some of these handles. For example, this red one that's right here in the center. You can grab that handle and either make it smaller or bring it all the way around. And when you bring it all the way around and close it, it'll go ahead and bring everything back into this original quadrant of this grid that we started out in. Okay, so you can see that. If we were to pull this back out, you can see it's actually expanding way beyond this original quadrant. Okay, you can see we've gone way outside. And if I were to go to Image and turn my image back on, this original checker that we are using, instead of just occupying this one quadrant, in reality it actually repeats itself out into infinity. So even though the UV layout goes beyond this original quadrant, this checker texture actually repeats, like I said, off into infinity. So if anything ever falls outside of this quadrant, it's still receiving texture, but it's just repeating texture at that point. Okay, so if I were to close that back up, now we're back in our original quadrant. I can also grab this green manipulator and scale it up or down. And same as before, it looks like it's actually scaling the texture if you were to look at it here. But if you look at the UV texture editor, let me go ahead and turn off my image so you can see this a little easier. What it's actually doing is pinching or pulling the UVs. You can see as I start to scale it up, it's actually just pinching these UVs so that they occupy less space and makes this texture look larger. Okay, so if I were to scale this way up, it looks like this image is really large. But if, like I said, if I were to go in and turn my checker texture back on, you can see that vertically it's taking up two of these checker patterns, and two checker patterns vertically is exactly what I've got on this sphere. Okay, so that's how you can go in and use these manipulators to change what your UV layout looks like. Let me go ahead and turn my image back off so you can see this a little easier. In addition to being able to scale these up or down, you also, within this manipulator, have the ability to rotate it. And it's kind of difficult to see, but if you look really closely, right in the middle of this manipulator, there's a red line, and you can see it carrying through onto the back side. If you were to grab this red line, you can now rotate this manipulator. So if you wanted the beginning of your UV layout to be at one particular point, you could rotate it until you reach that specific point in your model. Okay. In addition to that, you can also move this manipulator up or down. If you look very closely, you can see there's a little green line right underneath these green boxes. If you were to follow that down, there's a little green line that if you were to grab, you can pick that up and move your manipulator. Okay, if these manipulators are too difficult to either grab or too difficult to see, if you orbit around, down at the bottom you can see there's this little red, sort of a T icon down here. If you were to click on this, it'll now bring up your manipulators for scale, rotate, extrude. If you're a fan of polygon extruding, this manipulator should look pretty familiar to you. So you can now just grab your arrows to move it up or down. You can scale it in either axis, or if you click on the rotate manipulator, which is going to be a little bit difficult to find. There we go. If you grab the rotate manipulator, you can now rotate this around. Okay, and we can actually rotate this in any direction that we wanted to. Okay, so as I rotate this around at an obscure angle, you can see in my UV layout exactly what this is doing. Okay, and you can see these pretty drastic, nasty curves that are happening here. That's what some of this distortion is that you're seeing in this area. Okay, so that is more or less the cylindrical map. Okay, so in the next video we'll take a look at the spherical map, and in addition we'll take a look at how to manipulate this UV layout further.